You're listening to No Suck Saturday on the AM Update.
From an incredible journey across the ocean to the quintessential millennial actress gushing over motherhood and talk about the cardinal virtues, it's No Suck Saturday. I am Aaron, joined as always by my beautiful wife, Bella. How's it going?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well, just like our son, Ben. How's it going, Ben? Doing well.
It's usually just well.
Yeah.
Yeah, not even
saying doing anymore.
Yeah,
just well.
Well, how do you sleep? Well.
Well, let's get into it. I said it again. Well.
Well.
Get into it. 5 stories we think objectively do not suck. Christ Church in Moscow, Idaho, led by Pastor Doug Wilson, is planting a church in Washington, D.C. that's set to launch July 13th. Wilson announced the church plant earlier this month in a blog post titled, "A Mission to Babylon." Wilson said, quote, "So why are we doing just this just now? The first reason is that we are reading Providence in a particular way. With the change in administration, we believe there will be many strategic opportunities with numerous evangelicals who will be present in and around the Trump administration." He went on to say these believers are obviously culturally engaged already, but we happen to believe that every form of cultural engagement needs to have a solid theological foundation and support, and we want to help provide it. So that I thought was really cool news. Yeah. I'm a fan of Doug Wilson, even though I'm not officially into Reformed world. I think you look at his ministry, he's been a very strong and courageous and bold and consistent leader. And now he's reading what he calls Providence, and he thinks it's time to plant a church in Washington, D.C. However, what's different about this church? It's not the typical church plant. From what I was reading, he is kind of blitz scaling this, I think is the term of art. Mm-hmm. Instead of actually trying to find a pastor to anchor there and a full-time staff and this and that, he's going to actually fly in pastors from different members of his denomination each week to preach and try to scale this thing as fast as possible.
Wow.
He's not trying to be efficient. He's not trying to be perfect all the way around, but he says he thinks that there's a very real opportunity in the center of cultural and political power to build a very strong church in Washington, D.C. So I thought for that alone, the interesting strategy in trying to build and develop a church there, I thought that was an interesting good news story.
Yeah, that is very interesting. All right, my first story comes from Bradford, Tennessee, where a 6-year-old little girl invited an unlikely guest to her kindergarten graduation party. As Mally Collins' mom started planning a graduation party for her daughter, she asked Mally who she wanted to invite, and of course Mally listed off several friends and family members, but she also asked to include Don Allen, her school bus driver.
Aww.
Over the past year, Mally and Don have gotten really close, obviously seeing each other twice a day for pickup and drop off, and they always start the day off and end the day with a hug before getting off the bus. Don gratefully accepted the invitation to attend the party, and in a TikTok that Mally's mom made, he can be seen talking to Mally and her family and playing games with them. Several family members were kind of confused as to who this random guy was, but once they heard the story, they also thought it was really sweet. When asked about what her favorite part of the party was, Mally responded, "I liked hanging out with him the most. We are best friends."
Oh, that is so sweet.
Isn't that cute?
That is very cool.
Yeah, just a very sweet story about the positive impact that, just adults like that can have.
Bus driver.
Yeah, exactly. And he just looks like the sweetest old man. It's very cute.
Indeed. That is a cool story. Glad you found that. Well, you've probably seen this. I know I have a few updates. A lot of people have been buzzing about this man, an Oregon man who quit his job at a tire company and liquidated his retirement savings to set sail for Hawaii with his cat Phoenix, reached his destination late last week, welcomed by cheering fans at the end of a weeks-long journey that he documented for his massive followers on social media, including this moment when he got an escort from the Coast Guard.
Got a Coast Guard escort, Hawaiian Coast Guard. It's super cool.
Oliver Widger, who was also greeted by Hawaii Governor Josh Green at the Waikiki Yacht Club in Oahu, acknowledged he was nervous facing the crowd, which included reporters. Widger says he was feeling really weird, not seasick, but, quote, "I just feel like I have to, hold on to things to not fall over." With spending that much time out at sea, it has to be weird transitioning to being in a boat all this time. and trying to get your sea legs and then transitioning to being back on land and getting your land legs, I would think, again, you're not constantly moving around. I thought that was a cool story. Do not recommend liquidating your retirement savings.
No.
This is not a story for everybody, but it's really cool that he had this sense of adventure and he decided to go do that. And that sense of adventure I just don't see very much anymore amongst young men in particular. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, that's super fun. It's like modern day pirate. That's very fun.
I don't think he was actually swashbuckling, but
he could have been.
In terms of the adventure part of being a pirate, yeah.
Yeah, just being on a boat. No one really does that.
Well, I guess
these
he didn't
days.
document the entire time. I guess he could have gotten up to some piracy.
Who knows? He had Captain Hook under the boat. Well, my second story is kind of in the same vein of just something kind of cool that someone did, but not necessarily saying that we should all follow in her footsteps. But my next one takes place in Wales, where Stephanie Case won the Ultra Trial Showdonia 100K Ultra Marathon. So what makes this, well, for one thing, ultra marathons are insane. I don't know if you've ever watched those or followed them at all, but they're running, although most of the time it looks like they're kind of speed walking after a while because it's very intense. But these races can go on for up to 24 hours, sometimes longer, depending on their mileage. But what makes this even more incredible is that she completed this race 6 months after giving birth. And along the way, she stopped to breastfeed her daughter at 8 stations.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Incredible.
It's incredible. Is it like, you would know, you'd be somebody to ask this. Is that advisable?
Absolutely
it's incredibly
not.
But not, is that advisable?
No, I don't recommend every woman do this. I mean, at 6 months, I was like, I don't know, finally getting back into weightlifting. Like, no, we should not all be doing this. But this is kind of my thing. And I've talked about this before on Ask Izzy. But basically, really your athletic status before pregnancy really dictates what you can do during and then very shortly afterwards. Like for someone like her, she'd been ultra marathoning for years. Her body was conditioned for this, so she was equipped to be able to do it. Someone like me should definitely not just go at 6 months postpartum and go run 100K. Like that sounds terrible.
Right.
But she completed the race in just under 17 hours.
That's pretty good.
Just, amazing.
Especially given the circumstances.
Right, especially when she's stopping to breastfeed every couple hours, and that takes, 15, 20 minutes, depending. There's some pretty cool pictures of her online, sitting at the rest, or the aid stations, eating with one hand, nursing her daughter, fueling both of them, and then going on and winning the race. So, yeah, congrats to her. That's super impressive. I will not be doing that.
Well, that is an interesting story. Very cool, impressive, to say the least. We go from that to would you call Jennifer Lawrence the quintessential millennial actress? She is kind of that generation's actress, right?
I would say so.
Well, she has disappeared, it seems like, for a while. And the reason being is that she became a mom. Well, she's back. I think she's got a new role in some art house film. And she was asked at the Cannes Film Festival recently what it's like being an actress and a mom. And Bella, I don't know. Listening in between the lines, maybe I'm trying too hard here. Listening in between the lines. Just listen to this carefully. Have you heard this yet?
Mm-mm.
Okay, listen carefully to this. See if you can tell if you think she wants to say something else than what she actually says here.
Oh,
okay.
Having children changes everything. It changes your whole life. It's brutal and incredible. And so not only do they go into every decision of, if I'm working, where I'm working, when I'm working, they've taught me, I didn't know that I could feel so much, and my job has a lot to do with emotion, and they've opened up the world to me. It's almost like feeling like a blister or something, like so sensitive. So they've changed my life, obviously, for the best, and they've changed me creatively. I highly recommend having kids if you want to be an actor.
So that is Jennifer Lawrence, the quintessential millennial actress, talking about what it's like being a mom and being an actress. And I don't know about you, Bella. It kind of seems like, one, that was positive, especially coming from somebody who's mainstream like that and saying, even having that number of positive things to say about motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like she was trying to stop herself from going full bore and saying, this is the best thing ever, or this is like the most life-changing. I mean, she said it's brutal sometimes.
Right.
But what did you think? Did that come off as she was trying to kind of self-edit along the way there? Or am I just being too Pollyannish?
I mean, I felt like she was just trying to give a diplomatic, slightly artistic answer.
Yeah. That's probably the Occam's razor answer.
A little bit, but I mean, everything she was saying was true, and even though I'm clearly not an actress, but she is so right, though, that having kids really changes you. I mean, well, duh, we've talked about this before. It literally reshapes your entire brain. Just the process of growing a baby and then entering motherhood into that. Like, it really does change everything, and you see things very, very differently. And, you know, her analogy of a blister, I thought, was actually pretty accurate. Like, it hurts, but then once the callus is over, you know, you're stronger for it. And speaking of which, I have like 4 calluses on my fingers because I've been taking Ben to the park so much.
Yep.
I've been trying to show him how to do the monkey bars. He hasn't picked it up, but my hands are certainly feeling
Your
it.
hands have picked it up, though.
Yes.
Well, that'll do it for 5 stories we think objectively do not suck. When we come back, continuing our study in the book by C.S. Lewis, Mere Christianity. There I go again. Buck, buck, buck. Caca, caca. Back in a minute.
This is No Suck Saturday. We'll be right back.
He told us not only to be as harmless as doves, but also as wise as serpents. He wants a child's heart, but a grown-up's head. He wants us to be simple, single-minded, affectionate, and teachable, as good children are, but he also wants every bit of intelligence that we have to be alert as its job, and in first-class fighting trim. That's an excerpt from Chapter 2 of Book 3 of C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity, which is the topic of conversation and discussion this week, Bella. I appreciated this chapter, very short, talking about the cardinal virtues, but there were several really good nuggets in here. And let's start our discussion with this question. There are 4 cardinal or pivotal virtues: prudence, temperance, justice, and fortitude. In your own words, give a definition of each one. Well, there were really only 2 that were talked about in any great detail in this chapter, and those are prudence and temperance. I think prudence is basically what I tell Ben to do all the time. Pay attention. Ben, pay attention. I don't tell him to be careful.
Right.
I think that's something that Jordan Peterson is absolutely correct about when he talks about do not tell your toddlers to be careful. Tell them to pay attention, because you don't want to teach risk avoidance at all cost. But prudence is basically, hey, what are the second and third order impacts of your actions right now? What are things and reactions? You know, every action has a consequence or reaction. So that's how I would define prudence. And temperance, that is essentially, and C.S. Lewis goes into great detail in this chapter about how temperance has kind of been hijacked by teetotaling and things of that nature. But temperance is basically knowing what the line is between when something is permissible and enjoyable. Where is the line between permissible and enjoyable and idolatrous? That's how I would define it. I don't recall even justice and fortitude being discussed in any great detail here.
Yeah, basically it was that justice is honesty, fairness, truthfulness, keeping promises, and then fortitude was courage, strength, perseverance. And his whole point with that was that you can't practice any of the virtues without bringing fortitude.
Or fortitude. Okay, I got that confused. So how would you define, do you want to pick any of those 4 and give your own definition?
Sure. Yeah, so with prudence, what I had written down was common sense, able to think things through, use your brain, not just your heart. Basically using the brain that God gave you. And kind of like he talks about, God will make you wiser along the way. You don't have to already be super smart. He doesn't expect that of us.
Yep.
But Christianity is an education in itself, because you're constantly thinking about things that are so much bigger than you and understanding more about the universe by learning about him. And I think that helps get you out of the emotional part of our brain, because that's how we think a lot of the time.
Yep.
And it's definitely worse for women, because like we come into an issue and it's, I'm feeling this, and this. And it's like, no, like, let's take a step back and let's use some prudence. Let's think through this and use some logic.
This is another excerpt. C.S. Lewis writes, "It is, of course, quite true that God will not love you any the less or have less use for you if you happen to have been born with a very second-rate brain. He has
like that.
he has room for people with very little sense, but he wants everyone to use what senses they have." And he brings up the example of Paul. Is it Paul? No, John Bunyan. Mm-hmm. Paul Bunyan is the American lumberjack, John Bunyan, and how somebody of his low education was able to write such a profound book in Pilgrim's Progress. Maybe that's something, if we don't want to make Ask Izzy a weekly staple, maybe we should go through Pilgrim's Progress next.
Oh my goodness, that might put me to sleep.
But the point that he was trying to make is that the reason why Christianity doesn't take an education to understand is because Christianity is the education. I think one other takeaway from this chapter, and one other excerpt that I really love, is this when he's talking about temperance. One of the marks of a certain type of bad man is that he cannot give up a thing himself without wanting everyone else to give it up. That is not the Christian way. An individual Christian may see fit to give up all sorts of things for special reasons, marriage or meat or beer or the cinema. But the moment he starts saying the things are bad in themselves or looking down his nose at other people who do them, he has taken the wrong turn.
Yeah.
That's basically Paul in the New Testament when he talks about all things are permissible, but not all things are profitable.
Right.
If you're eating meat sacrificed to idols, is that permissible? Yes, unless it causes another brother to stumble, and that's what C.S. Lewis is talking about. So
Yeah.
a very short chapter, but some really good stuff. Give me one other takeaway that you had from this chapter.
That was the one that stuck out to me
Yeah.
because it made me think of some of like the legalism that I encountered in the church.
It's very pervasive in the last era of the church.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up and I mean, you were obviously part of it too, but I feel like it was worse for girls in purity culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very much this, we cannot do X, Y, and Z and very rigid. And it was very much a teetotaler approach to everything, putting on lots of rules that God didn't really ask us to do.
Yeah.
So
I think that's, yeah. And I think that was, I don't think it's up for a debate. That was very pervasive in the last era of the church in the United States. Mm-hmm. Especially in flyover country. Yeah. I think that's unfortunately given way to kind of some permissiveness to the nth degree.
Yeah, now we swung the other way.
And you get guys like Rhett and Link. Here's my deconstruction story. And, you know, on the nth degree of some of the legalistic or fundamentalist, I kind of understand why those guys deconstruct. I do on some level. Mm-hmm. But it became, I think legalism in and of itself became a scapegoat for just, I want to be God now.
Well, I think that was kind of the story with like Joshua Harris and like his stating goodbye. That was his whole, because his book was very legalistic, that it was, you will not do these things. And now look at him. He's walked away from his faith. Yeah. It's very sad. Yeah. Well, on that note,
that'll do it for our study through chapter 2 of book 3 of C.S. Lewis's Mere Christianity. When we come back, we'll have our highlight of the week and our question of the week. It's coming up next. Okay.
Oh.
Where were we? Oh, yeah. Highlight of the week and question of the week. I'm double dipping here, but my highlight of the week was last Friday. Just a normal day doing normal things all together as the family.
Yeah.
Because weekends are kind of different. The rhythms are different than a typical day. And usually when I'm home, it's for and around holidays. So we've got other rhythms that we've got going on. But Friday was just pretty much a normal day. Mm-hmm. Had off in air quotes from work. We taped ahead.
Right.
And just getting to hang out with all of you guys, do a whole day together. That was really cool. So that was my highlight of the week. Aww. And just getting to do things together as a family. Because the other thing too, and I think this is fairly typical, is that we're trying to give each other breaks too most of the time. And so the times we're all together, it's we do have time all together every single day. That's at the dinner table,
right?
At the very least.
Yeah.
But actually spending extended time together, that was a lot of fun. What was your highlight of the week?
Oh, well, I enjoyed that too. Highlight of my week was probably watching Abby interact with a whole bunch of dogs.
I know.
So she loves dogs.
Yep.
And I feel bad because we are not getting a dog. I am putting my foot down. Not that anyone has asked, but I refuse to add a dog into our chaos until Ben is a little bit older and can actually help and take the dog out and go for a walk. So we're probably talking like early elementary school. Plus it's going to have to be hypoallergenic. So, but Abby loves dogs. She loves dogs so much. And I'm not really sure where that stemmed from.
I don't know.
I really don't know.
She just explodes with excitement and happiness.
Exactly.
Any type of dog.
It doesn't matter. Big, small, she doesn't care. She'll be in her stroller and she'll just start kicking her legs and squealing.
Yep.
And last weekend, my sister came into town and brought her dog, and we were over at my parents' house and they had their dog, and Abby was just in heaven. I mean, she was just sitting on the ground. She had like one hand on each dog. She was petting them, just like loving on them. And my sister's dog absolutely adored her because they're about the same size. And that went great until the dog licked Abby in the mouth, and then she wasn't super jazzed. But
I wouldn't be either.
No, I was gonna say I don't blame her. But yeah, it was just very, very fun to see her get so excited about something.
That's really cool. Yeah, I noticed that because I took Ben and Abby to a park a couple of Saturdays ago, and there were a few dogs there, and just kicking and not screaming, but squealing. It's just happy noises, very loud.
Yes.
All right. What's our question of the week?
What is a compliment that someone has given you that stuck with you?
A compliment that somebody has given me that has stuck with me. Well, I'll go for, I don't want to call it low-hanging fruit. It's not. But I think one time you called me very wise. And I'm like, I don't know if I see that. Wise owl or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure if I agree with that. And you probably don't either by this point.
No, I definitely do. Every year that we're together, I think you're smarter.
Well, thanks.
You're welcome.
Hopefully that sticks with me too. But that's one that stuck with me. What about you?
That's very sweet. Oh, gosh. I mean, one time someone told me that I always have really cool t-shirts, and that stuck with me. I don't know why, because like I do try to like curate like different like graphic shirts.
Yep.
And I don't know why, but that is just like every time I put on like a graphic t-shirt, that always sticks with me.
Really?
Like this one person told me that I had good shirts.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's cool. You do have good shirts. You're wearing the Schrute Farms bed and breakfast with the beat on it.
Beat, yes. Yeah. I try to like pick different ones, like not like obvious ones, like random references.
Somebody yesterday on Ask or Tell Me Anything.
Yeah.
It was Melissa.
Yeah.
Melissa said and sent a picture. She smoked turnips.
Oh my.
No, I applaud her.
That's impressive.
It is very impressive. I kind of want to try it now.
Sure.
Smoked turnips.
I mean, that would probably actually give them some flavor because I think they kind of taste like dirt just normally.
Yeah. Anyway, maybe we should smoke some beets and turnips together.
Sounds good to me.
That'll do it for another edition of No Suck Saturday. Hope you enjoyed it as much as we made it, as much as we had making it for you. That's gonna. As you can tell, we are on our last legs as it pertains to the mouth. That doesn't make any sense. Back at it again with another fresh AM update on Monday.
Thanks for listening to No Suck Saturday.